Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
Are you intuitive? The answer to that question might surprise you. Most of us may very well be intuitive if we just learn how to listen. Mission Evolution Radio TV show is coming to you around the world on the X-Zone TV channel, xztv.ca. With us this hour discussing our often unrecognized intuitive skills is Melanie Barnum. Melanie is a psychic and medium, an intuitive counselor, life coach, reflexologist, and hypnotist. She's been practicing professionally for almost 3 decades. Melaine enjoys helping others connect to their loved ones, discover their own greatness, and dive into their intuitive abilities through individual sessions, workshops, and meetings. Mentoring. Melaine is the author of 9 books translated into multiple languages. Her latest, Real Life Intuition. Her website, MelaineBranham.com. Melaine, thank you so much for joining us on Mission Evolution.
Hi, Gwilda. It's actually Melanie.
Thank you. Sorry. Well, now, hello, Melanie. We get to meet again.
Hi.
So, when and how did you discover you were psychic?
So probably about 3 decades ago, I felt like I was hit over the head and I heard the words, "You need to do this work now." And I kind of looked around and said, absolutely not. I wasn't doing anything spiritual at the moment. I was the owner of a store. I had been the controller of a company. And I said, no, I'm not doing this. But I knew immediately what it was about and what it meant. And at the same time that I was fighting it, I said, okay, well, here we go. And that's what really kicked off my new journey in life.
So you're also a medium. What's the difference between being a psychic medium and a medium?
So the way that I work is everything that comes to me intuitively, everything that comes to me psychically comes through your deceased loved ones or your guides on the other side. So I don't usually separate between being a medium and being a psychic. For me, the way that I work, it kind of just flows naturally together. So mediumship essentially is connecting to the other side, connecting to deceased loved ones that have passed. And that just kind of happens to me because when I tune in, all your information comes from your guides or your loved ones.
So what's the difference between a guide and a loved one on the other side?
So a loved one is somebody that was part of your family or somebody that was a great friend to you. It's somebody that was actually living. And it could be somebody that passed away before you were actually born. But generally, it's somebody that was alive here. Your guides, for the most part, basic guides are those guides that have not necessarily been here anytime around your birth or anytime around your actual life, I should say. But it can be that they have never walked the earth. It can be that these guides have touched your life in different ways. And we all have a whole bunch of guides. Usually the guides that we kind of travel around with or that are part of our history or part of our family, I should say, our guide family, are ones that are there to help us specifically on the other side.
So the way you're speaking, it sounds like the other side is a little more general than what most people view it as. Most people view the other side as where we go when we die, but it also, are you talking like the shamanic realms?
It can be. Essentially, when I tune in or when I'm doing readings, I connect to, again, what I call the other side or the energy of the universe. And the universe encompasses everything that's not present here for me, everything that's not physically here. And that can include shamanic energies. That can include your guides, your loved ones, your angels, ascended masters. It can include all of those things. And to me, and I'm getting goosebumps, by the way. Goosebumps are validation that what I'm telling you is true and accurate, or that spirit is present. So to me, when I'm tuning into the other side, it simply means that I'm tuning into your variety of helpers that are there for you.
So, does it feel different than if you're just tuning into the other side where the deceased are when you're tuning in more broadly?
Not necessarily, not for me. It kind of feels like it's all part and parcel. When I do a reading, if somebody wants to come through, one of your deceased loved ones wants to come through, they'll give me either their name or their initial. Um, when it's just your guides, or when it's just the energy of the universe that's kind of working together to bring me the information for you, then I don't necessarily get more information than what they're telling me. I won't necessarily get the information from your deceased loved one.
Okay. So, what's the difference between intuition and psychic abilities?
So there's a big kind of controversy about this. A lot of people think that it's exactly the same thing, that there's no difference whatsoever. For me, I believe that your intuition is something that we're all born with. It's a natural state. It's part of our kind of innate state of being. And we're all intuitive. We all have that sense of intuition. When you talk about psychic or psychic abilities, or using those psychic abilities, to me, it just takes it a little bit further. You know, kind of liken it to everybody can play a note on a piano, but not everybody is going to be Beethoven. Um, we can all do it. It's just a question of how deeply we want to go into it. And from my perspective, psychic abilities also, it's a little bit deeper in that we do readings for other people, or we share our psychic gifts with other people.
So, can one learn? I mean, okay, we're all somewhat intuitive from what you're saying.
Mhm.
Most of us don't think we are. Can we learn to access that intuition?
Absolutely. So, everybody says, "Oh, you can't learn how to do this. How are you going to learn how to do this if you're not naturally psychic?" And it's not true. Just as with anything in life, if you practice, if you get good mentors, teachers, read lots of books that have exercises in them, you can definitely move from being just a basic intuitive, somebody that uses kind of their gut instincts on occasion, to being able to access their intuition kind of on demand.
And then where do we go when okay? Can we walk that into being a psychic or a medium? Um, or are we playing chopsticks instead of Beethoven?
It depends on the person. Everybody's different, but the more that we practice it, the more open we become, and the more the universe is going to kind of send you more information. So it's kind of, putting the chicken before the egg, or the egg before the chicken. It's not a if so then. It's more a let's try it and let's just keep going. And the more we do it, the more we feel it, the more we practice it, the better off we will be, the better we will be with our intuition, the more we'll be able to access it, and the more we'll be able to use it. And when I say that the universe will give us more information, it's because we're tapping into that energy of the universe. We're tapping into the energy that connects all of us. And the more open we are to it, the more we learn how to access it. And so the more the universe can send us information to help us tune into our own intuition.
So I'm hearing you say that we can we're all intuitive. We can
Mhm.
start practicing using our intuition, but then from there we can also possibly all be psychic and a medium.
Look, we all have things that we want to do. We all have things that we like to do, or that we desire to do. It doesn't mean that we're all going to be able to do it. So, yes, we can all be mediums in some way, but it doesn't mean that we'll be able to tap into our dead loved ones on the other side. It doesn't necessarily mean that we'll be able to tap into a client's deceased loved ones. We don't always have that gift. We don't all have that desire to be able to do that. I have friends that say, "How can you do that? How can you talk to dead people? That totally freaks me out." And I tell them, "'Cause I love it." I love doing this work. I love, and again, the goosebumps. I love what it brings to my life, what it brings to other people. So you can learn to an extent, but there also does have to be some gift in there, some natural ability to be able to do these things.
So like I can learn to dribble a basketball, but I'm not going to be Michael Jordan.
Exactly.
What stands between us and our intuitive gifts?
Us. I mean, the reality is when we are kids, and I'm getting goosebumps again, total validation. When we're kids, we're born intuitive. And when we start telling people, oh, I just saw somebody walk across the room, our parents, our teachers, whoever will say, no, you didn't. Or when we say, I know that this is not going to be a good idea if we, go to the store right now because something bad is going to happen. Our parents, our teachers, our, siblings, our friends will say, you're crazy. Like you're just making that up. That's not real. That's not our reality. So it gets shut down. And then we start doubting ourselves as children, as early as, the ability to be able to speak and to tell people what we're getting or what we're feeling or what we're kind of seeing. We get shut down and we shut ourselves down because the more people say that's not true, that's not real, the more we stop doing it. And so it kind of takes that energy like this and it goes down. And when you turn it off, just like anything else, when you turn it off and you stop using it or you stop practicing, it gets lessened and lessened. And at some point, you're kind of done with it until you decide to open it up again and to kind of energize yourself with it.
So does this information come through like on the dreamscape or the imagination pathways?
So, yeah, a lot of people dream and they dream with intuitive visions, intuitive dreams. Um, it also, I'm sorry. So sometimes I do that. You'll see me do that. And it's because information is kind of coming in. When information comes in, it's almost like it checks me and stops me from saying what I was about to say. So you asked about dreams, but then you also asked about something else.
Imagination.
Imagination. Imagination is huge, huge when it comes to psychic abilities and intuition. And I'll tell you why. So many people think that is it only our imagination? If we use our imagination, is it real? And I tell people all the time, you 99% of the time actually have to be able to imagine things in order to receive things, in order to
We're
see imagery.
we're going to have to pick up on imagination on the other side of a station break. Melanie
Okay.
and I will be right back very shortly, so don't go away. This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. So, how do I work this? With us this hour discussing accessing our intuition is Melanie Barnum, the author of Real Life Intuition. Her website, melaniebarnum.com. Melanie, we were talking about imagination and how um, that's one of the major channels that psychic people, intuitive people, mediums use to gain their information. And yet, as children, we're pretty much taught that imagination isn't real, right? Isn't that just kind of the general consensus? So is that what's standing between us and being able to work it?
It's more about a confusion. The confusion is what's real, what's our imagination, is this my intuition, or again, is it my imagination? And my perspective on imagination is that we 99% of the time, again, have to be able to use our imagination to receive messages. So a lot of times we get things symbolically. We'll receive information symbolically. Say we see something in our mind's eye. If we can't see it in our mind's eye, then we can't acknowledge that it's there. We have to be able to use our imagination in order to see things that aren't physically in front of us. And the reason that this question is so interesting to me right now is that I had somebody email me and ask me, what if you can't use your imagination? And I forget what it was called, but there was something going on with her that's actually a real phenomena that she's unable to actually access her imagination. So when she closes her eyes, she sees nothing. It's just complete darkness. She hears nothing unless it's something, externally, physically with her physical ears. She doesn't have the ability to access her information. So it was very interesting to me because she asked if she could still tap into her intuition. And my response to that was, can you feel? Can you still feel things? Do you still smell things? Do you still taste things? And I haven't heard back from her yet, but it is an interesting concept because most of us that use our intuitive abilities either see, hear, feel, or know things. And if we don't have that ability to imagine, then it makes it that much more difficult.
I would think that sounds like a pretty difficult place to be that she's in. I mean, how can you create something if you can't imagine it?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's sad. So, how can we tell intuition from something we're just making up?
Well, a lot of times you can't. So when you start practicing and you start using your intuitive awareness, then you start noticing different ways that your intuition hits versus your imagination. And things start happening. Like I was talking about the goosebumps before. When I get goosebumps, it's an intuitive reaction. It's something is telling me that either spirit is here, spirit is present, or that what I'm saying is true and accurate. And it's a response, it's a physical response in my body. Some people get those goosebumps. I also end up doing this, constantly. I constantly during readings are scratching my head. And it's not because I have bugs. It's just that I get tingles. So sometimes when you're using your intuition, you will get physical responses in that way, as opposed to when you use your imagination, you won't have that response. Other times it just feels different. It hits differently in your body. It hits differently in your mind. And the more that you practice it, the more that you can feel, know, or sense the difference.
So, how do we tell the difference between intuition and triggers from the past?
What do you mean by that?
Okay, so say we're sitting around, we're just having a conversation, and you say something that triggers me into past abuse that I may or may not remember, but I start getting information or triggered into my imagination or whatever, and create that reality in a certain way. We're suddenly living that reality because we were triggered into it. So
Mhm.
that puts us in an altered space. How can we tell the difference between that and, so say for instance, you intuitively get a feeling, oh, something's going to happen that's really, really bad. But sometimes that's from being triggered into the past by something somebody said or whatever, and tapping into the fact that it wasn't okay then, versus seeing something in the future that might be dangerous.
Well, I mean, the first thing I would say is if you are triggered by something that is not so great from your past, you know, go for assistance with that, go for help with that, because that's something that you don't want to have to deal with on a regular basis. You want to be able to kind of ferret out what is real, what is past, and what is now, and what is intuition. So that's kind of a difficult place for somebody to be. Um, the way that you can kind of check in with yourself is ask your body, am I feeling this because of muscle memory? Or am I getting this information and I'm not feeling it the same way? So remember before we talked about imagination and we talked about intuition. And they both play a huge part or a huge role, as does, past abuse or past trauma in who you are and how you develop. And your intuitive awareness, when that intuition or that intuitive kind of spike comes through, it'll feel different than that triggering moment.
So you're saying that both of them can give you body memories or body responses, but they will be different one from the other?
Yes, because with intuition, it's not fear based. Intuition is not something that should scare you. It might cause you, you know, a little bit of a shock, or it might say, hey, hold on, something bad is going to happen, but it's not going to be fear based. It's not going to give you kind of that guttural reaction that you might have if you were triggered from a past abuse.
Okay, so it's just information versus a traumatic response.
Usually, usually, I'm not going to say all the time, but I would definitely say usually it's more information based, and it again, it feels different in your body. It hits differently.
So many of us are, if we're psychic at all, we're also empaths. How can a person tell if they're picking up something from somebody else in their field versus accessing the other side?
Well, there's a couple different ways. One of the ways that they can tell is to ask. People always say, "How do you know the difference?" And I tell them to ask. Ask for validation. Ask the universe to give you more information to help you decide which it is, which way it's coming to you. Um, One of the best tools that we have is to ask. We can ask our guides, we can ask our loved ones, help me understand what's going on. Give me some more information, some more symbols, some more data, some more messages so that I can decipher what's actually happening here.
Can those signs, symbols, and data, can that show up in ordinary reality, as in you're asking for a sign and a raven goes by?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when we are talking about signs, it's something external. It's the tangibles, right? It's those things like you just said, a raven goes by. We can ask for signs for anything. We can ask for signs for whether or not it's going to be a good day to, go for that bike ride, or if it's going to be a better day to stay at home and ride that stationary bike. And, if we see something internally, if we see something in our mind that symbolizes danger in some way, or we see a stop sign, even, it might be a stop sign saying, don't go out, stay home. Um, that becomes then a symbol because it's internal. It's something that we see internally or something that we receive internally. It's not tangible like the raven in your story there. The raven is more tangible. It's something that we can hold on to. So yes, we can ask for signs. We can ask for messages, and messages quite often come symbolically because our guides, our loved ones, the universe wants to send us information in ways that we can understand. And the easiest way to do that is by using a quick symbol, as opposed to writing a whole paragraph for us. It's hard enough to connect, let alone trying to understand, a lot of information at once. So that the way that they are able to do that is to give us a symbol.
So if the symbol is indeed the raven flying by, what did the universe prompt the raven to fly at that moment? How does that work? How does that blend into the natural world?
Sometimes it's about the universe's energy, other times it's about our acknowledgement of the sign. So it's not necessarily that the universe said, "Hey, Raven, go fly by, Gwilda today. Let her know, like go fly by her." It's more that we acknowledged it. It's more that we noticed it. It's more that we saw it. It's kind of like when you are driving down the road and you see vanity plates on, a car. Vanity plates are those that spell something out and they catch your eye. They wouldn't have caught your eye if you hadn't been noticing all of the license plates that went by. It's just that it stuck out more. So the fact that, a vanity plate might be driving by that says Raven could be, again, your sign. It doesn't have to be a physical raven, but it's something that we don't even realize that we're noticing until it stands out to us. Same thing happens with numbers. We may look at a clock as we're walking by and don't even acknowledge that we looked at the clock until it says like 111 or 444, or in my case 924, which is my birth date. So we don't necessarily acknowledge everything that we see unless it pops out to us. And that's okay as a sign. Something that is there for us to notice or take note of can be a sign.
So is our psyche just setting us up to notice things that will indeed give the answer versus the world sending them to us?
Yes and no. Like I said, sometimes it's kind of, we ask for it, we manifest it, and the universe provides it. Other times it is, we notice what we need to see in order to help us move forward or to give us our answers. Um, an example quickly was when one of my daughters was very, very young. The doctors said, "You need to do tubes in her ears." And I said, "No, no, no. She's an infant. I'm nursing. I will stop doing dairy. I will stop eating dairy." And he said, "That has nothing to do with it." And I said, my intuition is telling me that has everything to do with it. And I'll stop doing dairy. And sure enough, he gave me like a week to think about it. I was driving to the office, to the doctor's
Oh,
office.
I hate to leave this as a cliffhanger, but it's
Oh,
time for another station break. Melanie and I will be right back to continue our discussion, so stay right there. This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. Are you gifted? How can you tell? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. With us discussing psychic gifts is Melanie Barnum. Her website, melaniebarnum.com. Melanie, we had a cliffhanger about your daughter and dairy. Would you mind continuing?
sure. Um, so I needed to make a decision, and I needed to make it that day because I was driving on my way to the doctor's office to tell them yes or no. We were going to do the surgery or we weren't. And in my heart, in my intuitive self, it was telling me no. But because it was a big deal and it was about my daughter, I needed validation. So I asked for a sign. And I ended up pulling up behind a car that had a bumper sticker that said something like, "Your angels are with you. You know what they're telling you." Like it was that kind of a thing. And I said, "Oh, that's it." I just got goosebumps again. Um, I said, "That's it. I'm not doing the surgery." Like I know that with my intuition that that's what it is. And sure enough, I stopped dairy and she was fine.
So you personally stopped dairy because she was nursing.
She was nursing, yes.
Right, gotcha. That threw me for a loop. Is the kids can actually have food allergies to something that the nursing mother is eating. You know,
Yeah, it's
I guess it
huge.
makes safe. So, did you seek training for your gifts?
I did. So remember I told you way back at the beginning of the broadcast here that there was no way I was going to listen to them when they said, "You have to do this work now." Had been the controller of a company. I owned my own store. There was no way I was going to hang up a shingle. So, being my rational self, that intellect stepped in and said, "Well, you are going to end up doing this. So, you better learn how to do it." So, I set out to learn everything I possibly could about everything that had to do with psychic ability and psychic work. And I started reading every book I could get my hands on. I started practicing with the exercises. I started training with people that were local teachers as well as famous teachers. Um, and I found that not only did I do pretty well with everything, and I was really kind of tuning in a strong way, but that I loved it. And it gave me like such a goosebumps again, such an amazing feeling to be able to do this. And, 30 years later, I do professional reading still. And it doesn't matter how long I've been doing this, I still get the aha moments and they excite me. So when something comes through that's, kind of over the top, there's no way I could have known, which is pretty much what all psychic readings are. But when they're big ones, when there are those aha moments, when the client says, "Wow," those are the moments that I still get really excited. So you'd asked before, can anybody do this? Like if you develop it, and you have to love it. You really do. You really have to love it for it to work, for you to be able to tune in enough and for it to be real.
So basically, follow your joy.
Exactly.
So, how do you help people discover their own gifts?
I teach. It's about practice. Like I keep saying, it is about practice. And everybody has gifts in different ways, and everybody receives information in different ways. So you can't just do a buy one, or one size fits all. It's got to be adaptable and it's got to be catered to other people, and catered to kind of everybody. So I mentor a bunch of people and everybody is going to be different. I also teach workshops. And when I teach workshops, and a lot of times I do the exercises that I have in my books. So when I do workshops, it's not about me just lecturing. We have to be in it. We all have to get in it. We all have to play in our psychic field. Like this is what it's about. It's about being fun while learning how to tune in, how to tap in.
So, how can accessing our intuitive gifts help us with manifestation?
Oh, well, they both kind of go hand in hand with belief. So you have to have that belief that it can be possible. And you have to also believe that your intuition is telling you to do the right thing or telling you to go on the right path. That manifestation thing, people have a hard time with it sometimes because you don't necessarily have to do the work to manifest things, but you have to do the things along the way. So I always tell people you have to be part of your life. You have to operate within your life. So you have to be part of what's happening in order to take advantage and to manifest things. So if your intuition is telling you, you just asked for money, okay? And your intuition is telling you, let's go check the mailbox. If you're not participating in your life and you're not going to check the mailbox, then you may not get that check that just came in out of nowhere that's in your mailbox. So you
So,
may think, I didn't manifest it then.
so basically, we set our intention to manifest something, but then we have to follow our promptings, or it's not going to be there.
We have to participate in our lives. So, having said that, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do something. Another quick example, when I started doing my work, I decided to sell my store, and I put it up on for sale one day. That was it. And my employees, my family said, "How are you going to sell it if you took the sale thing down?" And I said, it's going to happen. Somebody's going to come, give me the right amount at the right time, and it's going to work out and it's going to be fine. And everybody said, no way. Well, it did. It worked out and it was fine. And somebody did come along, and it had nothing to do with what I had done. It had nothing to do with an ad. It was an old friend that I hadn't seen for years who stopped by and said, hey, my mom was thinking about starting this kind of a boutique. Are you looking to sell it? And it was as simple as that. And again, the goosebumps, validation. So manifesting means that you state your intention, you ask, you believe, you kind of let it go, and then you take it in and you receive it. Having said that, again, you do have to participate in your life. If you're getting nudged by your intuition to go do something or to go somewhere or to speak to somebody, then it may be that it's part of manifesting what you're asking for.
Many of us are kind of in the victim stance. It's like we say, well, I want such and such, but yeah, but I call it the yeah buts. Yeah, but that won't work out. Yeah, so that throws us immediately into doubt. And I think all of us wrestle with that. How do you stay on
Mhm.
course with holding the faith?
I wish I could give you a great answer there because I'm one of those yeah butters. Like I do it too. I've been doing this professionally for, like I said, just about 30 years, and I do the same thing. Well, I want to be able to do this, but so you have to decide that it's more important. What you want to manifest is more important than your doubt. It's up to you. There's no magic answer there. It's really up to you to believe that it's possible and to believe that it can happen for you. And if it's for your greater good, then the universe is going to make it happen in one way or another. Um, we talk about, and it's kind of a timing thing right now with all the flooding that's been happening, but we talk about that old parable where the man is on his roof because it's beginning to flood. And they come by in a rowboat and he says, no, 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 God is going to save me. The universe is going to save me. And so he doesn't get into the rowboat. And then they come by again and try and get him to come in with a big boat. And he says, no, 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 the universe will save me. And then they come by with a helicopter and drop a ladder down. And he says, no, no, no. And the tides are rising. And he says, no, no, no. The universe, God's going to save me. No problems here. And then he drowns and he gets to heaven and he says, why didn't you save me? And God said, what do you think the rowboat, the boat, and the helicopter were for? Like, we have to participate in our lives. We have to be open to the different things that might come into our lives to help guide us to the right direction for what we're trying to manifest.
So basically, we have to let go of how we think it should look.
Exactly. We have to let go of how we think it's going to happen or how it should look. 100%.
So can we direct our intuition to get the answers we want, or do we just have to? Does it show up randomly? How do we direct it?
The more we practice, the more we can direct our intuition to give us the answers that we're looking for. The more we practice asking to be shown or asking to get information, the more the universe is going to provide for us. The more the universe is going to strengthen our intuitive awareness.
Practice makes perfect.
Yeah, pretty much.
Um, did you find over time that times you had that aha, it did work, and clients go, "How did you know about my cowboy
Mhm.
pajamas?" Right, that sort of thing.
Right.
Do you find that that kind of validation over time has helped you hold the faith, basically?
100%. 100%. It's interesting because I'm writing a book right now, and I just wrote about that. How, some people believe that you don't need validation to do this work. I believe that you do need validation to do this work. And the reason is we could just be going along with our imagination and not have a clue, that we're right or wrong with what we're getting intuitively. And getting that validation helps us to learn again how it feels to us, how it reacts in our bodies, how it presents itself to us. And so that validation is huge.
And it doesn't necessarily have to come from somebody else, right? Just as events unfold, something you've intended for yourself. Is that
Mhm.
validation as well?
It is. And actually, sometimes validation is very difficult to get because remember, we talked about, whether we should go out for that bike ride outside or stay in. And, you know, the universe is sending you a stop sign, don't go. So you don't go. You have no idea whether something would have happened if you went out. There's no way to validate that because you didn't actually do it. So
Yeah,
sometimes it's difficult. Yeah.
that could be a conundrum, couldn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What did we just dodge, or did we dodge anything, or was I making it up? All those
Mhm.
doubts come. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
well, it's time for us to take another quick station break. Please stay with us as Melanie and I continue to explore intuition and psychic mediumship. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. To tell or not to tell? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. We're continuing our discussion with Melanie Barnum. Her website, melaniebarnum.com. Melanie, one of the things that comes up a lot, I think, particularly for budding psychics or mediums, particularly, is when they're approached with information about someone else. Say they're just standing close to a stranger, but they get information. Many are very tempted to say, "Hey, did you know that if you go out in your car, it's probably not going to be safe," or something like that. Um, where do you stand on that? If somebody hasn't asked specifically, do we just keep it to ourselves? What do we do?
So for me personally, I feel like it's a very intrusive thing. If you're just randomly giving people information that you see in the grocery store or on the street, and it can also be something that can harm you, because a lot of people don't believe in this line of work. They don't believe in intuitive awareness. Um, I don't turn it on. So what that means is that when I'm not working, I try and shut that part of it down because I don't want to tune into everybody else's dead people. I don't want to get all the information about them. Even when I do readings, I tell my clients that I won't remember what I've told you because it's not for me. It goes right through me. And I don't want to have to carry that stuff around. I feel like unless it's something that's extremely urgent or something that, can really cause them death or cause them great harm, then I would not come out and tell them what I was getting about them.
Which leads me to the next question is, can you turn this thing off and on, or are you just kind of along for the ride?
No, you can definitely shut it down a little bit. And by shutting it down, I don't mean that you're turning your intuition off 100%, but you're kind of muting it a little bit. And the reason that you do that is because you don't want to be overwhelmed all the time. You don't want to be attacked at the grocery store. You don't want to walk outside and start hearing all kinds of things from all your neighbors. You don't want that to happen. So you can definitely mute it. You still want to be able to receive crucial or critical information for yourself, and you could still turn it back on. You can ask the universe to, okay, now it's time to send me information. Now it's time to let me tune in. But you can also say, now it's time to let me go to sleep. Now it's time to let me go shopping without working. For me, it's work. I love what I do, so it doesn't feel like work, but it's still work. I don't want to go to the grocery store to get eggs and, have somebody come or have dead people coming up to me to say, "Hey, say hi to that one. Say hi to that one." I don't want that to happen all the time.
So it's not like there's a mute button, right? So is the controls your intention?
Pretty much. I mean, some people actually I've heard of that do have a mute button. It's like they have a metaphysical mute button where they just hit the button and say, I don't want to hear it unless it's, crucial or
So
critical.
this happens in the imagination, I take it?
Yeah.
You
You know,
imagine
it
that
all
button.
happens it all happens with that focus. It's about focusing on what you believe or what you want to happen. And so some people, like I said, focus on that mute button.
So, what are the greatest pitfalls of functioning as a psychic or a medium?
Hmm. It's interesting. It's a question I've never really thought of. I've never really given it much credence, I guess, because I don't feel like there are a lot of pitfalls. The biggest thing is that, I'm a normal like lacrosse mom. I'm that person that volunteered at school, that hangs out with their neighbors. A lot of people don't know that I do this work professionally because I don't always put it out there. The What can happen is that you get challenged quite often when people know what you do. And I'm not saying my direct friends or, people that do know who I am. But anybody, there's a lot of religious people that believe that you can't be psychic, and if you are, that you're evil and you're talking to the devil. And so they will challenge you. And I don't like that. I don't want that. I don't need that in my life. I don't want to have those challenges coming at me when, like I said, when I'm at a lacrosse game or when I'm, going to the gas station to fill up the tank of gas. I don't like those types of pitfalls. But other than that, I can't think of anything that I'd rather do. I feel like this is one of those professions that if you dedicate yourself to doing it and you do it right and you do it well, it can give you back so much because you feel it. It's heartwarming what you can how you can help other people and what you can do for other people. Um, like I said, there's always people that will be negative about any profession, but this one in particular is difficult. And that's the only pitfall that I've found.
How do you find that working as a medium or a psychic helps other people?
Oh my gosh. Think about if you could have one last word from your mom that passed, or if you could make sure that, your mom knew you were there when she passed, or if you could ask for guidance on what to do with, the house that you inherited because they're gone already. Um, those are the moments when people are overwhelmed with joy, overwhelmed with happiness that they're able to connect that one last time. And, it goes beyond that, obviously, but those are some of those moments where there's nothing better. Think about your own deceased loved ones. And if you could have, 5 more minutes with the people that you loved, what would you want to know? What would you want to hear? I think those are the best moments for me.
So, what are you tapping into? Are you tapping into the person's field that wants you to do the mediumship for them and the frequency of their crossed loved one? Are you tapping into the other side and finding them out of however many are over there? What are you really tapping into?
It's kind of a combination. So, people say, well, if you're just tapping into the person that's in your office, then it's not really tapping to their deceased loved ones. But things that people that come into the office don't know about that their deceased loved ones are telling me that later they can validate, those are the things that uh, kind of prove to me that we're tapping into their deceased loved ones on the other side.
And once again, if we're talking about again mediumship now, if you're standing in the grocery store and the ghost is going, I need to tell her something. It's really important. I need to tell her something. You don't know this person from Adam. What do
Hmm.
you do?
Like I said, I mean, unless it's like critical information, like life changing or life saving information, I don't entertain the ghosts that come through. I don't entertain the dead people that come through because I've already kind of shut it down. I don't want to know everything about everybody, and I definitely don't want to be invasive and, just go up to some random person. There have definitely been times where in conversation people will find out what I do. Um, one of the first things that I always say when people ask me what I do for a living, I say I'm an author. And I say that generally, unless we're in a different type of situation or a different type of setting, then I say I'm an author. And if they ask me what kind of books I write, then I tell them I write about, intuition and psychic abilities. And that opens us up. And it's from that moment where the person either is like, oh my God, like they want to know, or they just kind of step away and say, okay.
All right. This lady
Yeah,
needs to get back on her meds, right?
exactly.
So let's talk briefly about possessing spirits. Okay, if you're talking to the dead, how can
Mhm.
you tell one that they've crossed, and two that there's reliable information, or they might just because they're dead doesn't mean they're smart, kind of thing.
It really depends. I mean, if I'm doing a reading for somebody, then it's up to that person to validate it for me, to let me know what's happening. Um, I have never come across a spirit that would not leave me alone or would not go away if I felt like it was negative and it wasn't supposed to be there. So essentially, if I feel something is negative, if it's making me really uncomfortable, I will tell them in my mind and also out loud to go away. They're not allowed to be here. And there's only been a few times where I've had to do that. So usually it's validated by my client, or, I'm able to validate what's coming through for me. Um, or, like I said, it's just only been a couple times where I've had to say, go away.
Well, we're just about out of time in the show, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, Melanie, what's your mission?
Oh, that's a great question. And I just got goosebumps everywhere. My mission is to bring as much joy, peace, comfort, and happiness to people that are out there by allowing them and teaching them and helping them to use their own intuition and to use their own abilities that we're all born with, and to reawaken them so that they can use them for themselves. I'm
That
not trying to, get rid of any clients, but I think we all have it in us, and it brings so much joy and love to us.
that is a very worthy mission because right now, if ever there was a time, we need to be able to find our guidance, don't we?
Yes, we do. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You just gave me goosebumps all over my entire body.
I aim to please. Well, Melanie, unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This our guest this hour has been Melanie Barnum, international psychic medium and the author of 9 books, her latest, Real Life Intuition. To find out more about Melanie, where you can find her books and all she has to offer, visit her website, melaniebarnum.com. This has been Mission Evolution with Gwilda Wiyaka. For more information or to enjoy our past archived episodes, visit www.missionevolution.org. But please be sure to join us again right here on the X Zone TV channel, xztv.ca, where this mission will continue, bringing information, resources, and support to our evolving world.